So I've just been informed that by Tatiana that we're making a video right now. One of the things I want to really make a fuss over is that if it weren't for Tatiana, I never in a million years would have made any videos. It was because of her and her enthusiasm and her wish to get old-timers to talk about themselves, talk about the subject that had happened. And I resisted it for quite a while. But between Terrell Park, who goes by, call him BB, Basic, and Tatiana, this, whatever it is, series, mission, whatever, because at the time that Tatiana first contacted me, as far as anything, I was like hibernating. I was below apathy. I was just living a life, but not doing anything anymore with Scientology. I figured at that time that my willingness and interest in being a further influence regarding Scientology and Dianetics, I'd had enough, and the evolution of the church in Ron was so shocking to poor me that I didn't want to have anything to do with it, except I was a little bit angry that I was ashamed that anyone should find out that I'd been a Scientologist, or was one. Because think of what's happened in Germany and France, where they know a dictatorship when they see one, and Scientology and Dianetics in France, in both Germany and France, Scientology has a terrible name, and it has it in other places too. And the idea that that would happen after I retired from the dynamic, and that Ron himself would be one of the prime sources of damaging the public image of Scientology and his creation, I couldn't stand it, really. So when Tatiana said, well, Phil, I'll interview you, and if you got anything you want to say, you can say it, and maybe some people will see it and listen, and that's how this thing got going. So she deserves great credit, because she had the enthusiasm, she still does, the persistence and the willingness to provide a forum or a way for old-timers and others to offer something that might be good. I think it is mostly good because it's historic, and there are fewer and fewer people that actually knew Ron Hubbard back when he was being a human being. Really, a regular guy. He was making babies with Mary Sue Hubbard. You know, while we were in Washington, D.C., he fathered, I think Suzette, and then the last child, Arthur Ronald Conway Hubbard, which A.R.C., was the last child. Don't know what's become of all of them, but he was a regular guy. He had a father, a wife. He had to watch out that he didn't make his wife mad at him, just like a human being. And he was a lot of fun. Okay, so I like to start out each one of these video things. First of all, by the way, Tatiana was an interviewer, and that's a difficult task that she had mastered fully. Namely, on camera with sound running, she could ask questions that would direct people like me and others to talk about themselves and really get into things. And I had a marvelous session and cried my heart out over what Scientology as an organization had turned into, and how, I don't want to go into that anymore, but she used to do an interview, but because of my big mouth and my desire just to talk on different subjects, she has willingly allowed me to do that. And her main job is producing the video, running the camera, taking the breaks, editing, and getting the thing out. It's really not fair to her because in many ways she's a lovely person who knows how to ask questions that reach deeply into your life and experience, which is really the heart and soul of being a great auditor. And if she decided she wanted to be a great auditor, she already is one. That's the truth, coming from somebody that's supposed to know what a great auditor is. Get it? Okay. First thing I like to do is give Ron some credit so that it isn't all he did this and he did that and he shouldn't have done this and he should have done that and he wrecked Scientology and destroyed his church and harmed a lot of people, not maybe to death, but had very bad effect. There's plenty of that to cover. That's the latter day Ron Hubbard. Okay, but the early Ron Hubbard did something that every person I've ever known loves to have as an experience. What I'm talking about is that particularly among young people, there is a thing called idealism. And when you touch the spark of giving a young person, and perhaps even older people too, but particularly young people, the sense of a great cause or a great something to be accomplished, a purpose bigger than they ever dreamt of, a purpose that's bigger than just regular living, but something that's so important and so real and so exciting that many young people throughout the history of the world are willing to die to push forward such an ideal or such a purpose. The people that bring these purposes to us have many different names, but one of the things they all have in common is they are visionaries. They see something. They have this grand idea, this tremendous thing that wakes up people, whether it's to a revolution, the forming of a government, the start of the automobile industry, the making of the first atomic bomb. It could be a sport, it could be anything, but it's something that gives people the feeling that they're not just living along. This is like a big deal. And it can be horrifying. Take someone like Adolf Hitler. Don't take him. Germany was in a bad way after World War I. Hitler came along just the right time with a vision for Germany and the world. A lot of people didn't believe what a horrible vision it was going to turn out to be, because it later led to the deaths of tens of millions of people. It led to the Holocaust. It led to suffering and nightmares almost unimaginable. But the thing that got him going and got people willing to die was his vision. And he had that kind of charisma, that ability to take an audience and literally, call it hypnosis, whatever it is, mob psychology. They got the feeling, this is what we could be. All we have to do is follow the Führer, the leader, the boss's vision. And L. Ron Hubbard had that ability too, tremendously. He had that effect on just all kinds of people who, when they experienced the vision, started feeling more alive. Much more alive than their regular life. Falling in love for the first time, or maybe not the first time, is another way of describing this vision, where you feel like you're riding outside and above yourself, that something absolutely wonderful is happening. You're in love and you're loved. And that, as you know, those of you that have had the experience, it takes you out of your ordinary self. You might feel like, I'd be willing to die for this love. I'd do anything to defend this person. I would give my life gladly for the love that I have. Great romance, novels, books, plays, poetry, all about love. Because love is another one of those things that is bigger than life. And the things people will do for it, empires fall, murder is committed, the list of things that have occurred around the subject of love, what people will do when they fall under its spell, is both marvelous and can be horrible. They will lie, they will betray, they will harm the ones they previously loved, do anything because of love. Well, that's another one of these visions. Perfect love, filled with passion, romance, sex, the future, which shall mate and give the world great people. Okay, so there's all these visions that come along, and in the beginning, the people that are attracted to that visionary have the experience of the vision and the visionary that is different than at any other time afterward. They have the experience of the beginning, when the visionary themselves, be it man or woman or whatever, is also lit up, like contains powers and paranormal possibilities that are beyond what we expect of a human. So if you've ever had the experience of being at the beginning of some wonderful cause, some wonderful purpose, something that you had never really even expected, you know what I'm talking about. And at such moments, at the very beginning, the people are often as though enchanted and can do things and find things that they didn't know they were capable of. And Ron Hubbard had this ability to inspire that sense in people, giving them a feeling about life that was, in a sense, bigger than life. I happen to be one of the people that it was like, here I was leading my life. I'm going to be a professor of philosophy, and I'll wear a tweed suit with leather things, and I'll have the students over for tea, and we'll talk about Kant and Nietzsche and Socrates, and I'll have a tenure and I'll smoke a pipe, and that was my plan. But I ran first into Krasipsky, who had many ideas similar to what Hubbard later espoused. And then right after Krasipsky came Ron with this wow! Here is the chance not to just live a life. I've got to get security, I've got to eat, have shelter, take care of the kids, grow old, die, be a good citizen. There's nothing wrong with all that, but if you like excitement, adventure, romance, and the possibility of experiences way beyond the ordinary, then these visionaries can hold their sway. Like I forget who the people were that you see them like, I forget what they were called, but they wore yellow robes and shaved their heads, and they went all over the country. And Reverend Moon, the Moonies. Earlier there was a guy, an American author named Jack Kerouac, who started the beat. They were called beatniks, but it referred to beatitude. They were in a state beyond normal human. They were looking through all the hypocrisy, stupidity, the boredom, the banality that can infect ordinary human existence, and they could see something freeing, something ennobling, something that wasn't just, well, this is right and that's wrong and that's it. Van Vogt, the great science fiction writer, was tremendously excited by Krasipsky, and he wrote a number of novels that used general semantics. One of them was called The World of Null A. One of the things Korzybski pointed out was in their tradition of Western philosophy going back to Aristotle and our Western Indo-European languages, there's a tendency to have what would be called, built into the language, two-value logic, right, wrong, nothing in between, beautiful, ugly. Also, causing identification in the sense of the verb to be being used like this. He is a rat. Now, the word is in English is like an equal sign. So when you say, that guy over there is a dirty rat, you're saying that's what he really is. You're leaving out the whole event called a human being. So English is filled with that. Sentence after sentence that uses the verb to be, the is part, to say this is that. When in fact, that's far from the truth. Like, he's a Jew. Well, let's kill him. He's an Italian. That means he's a coward. I mean, this whole language thing. So Korzybski came along and said, look, we want to invent a way of communicating in which, instead of using Aristotelian two-valued, right, wrong, good, evil, truth, lie, we want an infinity value on with a gradient scale, so that between good and evil there are 10 million divisions and shades of those two things. So that if I say I'm talking about someone who has done something that could be considered evil, I mustn't see that in some absolute sense. Maybe it's a little bit evil, maybe it's a lot evil, maybe it's got some good in it too. So Korzybski was opening up something that both Newton and Leibniz opened up in mathematics, which was the calculus. And one of the things about the calculus, which doesn't mean a stone exactly, was the notion of being able to divide something into infinitely small number of things, which would make it possible to solve problems that heretofore defeated mathematics. The same is true of gradient scales and the idea of non-Aristotelian or null A, that's what Van Vogt labeled it. That type of thinking, which is the type of thinking, if you really fix up a person's mind, even though it's been conditioned by a language to think in two-value logic, with the help of Korzybski and general semantics and Dianetics, you can start to open up the thing so that the guy is talking about events, not labels for events. So, the word for this creature on my lap, this great Siberian tiger, the word is tiger. But that's just a word. There's a zillion things about tiger that are not contained in that word. Size, his weight, his color, his breath, the fact that he's a carnivore. What does a tiger dream of? Where does a tiger fit in the whole picture of the ecology, and so forth and so on? So Korzybski invented something which he called the structural differential. At the very bottom is the label, a word. Now, the word is not the thing. I can go tiger, 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 but nothing happens. Because a real tiger is not a word. And a real human being is not a word. Like, Tatiana is not a Russian. No. She speaks Russian, she was born in Russia, she at times was a citizen of Russia. But what is Tatiana really? She is a space-time event in the cosmos with a zillion qualities and attributes and gosh knows what. We can't even fill them all in. So at the top of this inverted pyramid, we have the event called Tatiana. At the very bottom, we have the highest level of abstraction possible, and we say, she's a Russian. Doesn't mean anything. What is a Russian? A Russian could be 1,000,001 different things. I'm a man? No, I'm not. Yes, I have what is called a male body, but that's not what I really am. See, he's a man. Aristotle came up with something like a human being is a featherless biped. Could be a bird. It'd be the same as a human being. So Korzybski blew the whole idea of verbal distinction of language. It went from Newton's solids to Einstein's infinite valued logic gradient scale between total truth, total untruth, and 1,000,000 infinite number of possibilities from the bottom to the top or the side as a way of thinking about life. People just reading about Dianetics, just reading about general semantics, it changes their lives because they start seeing life differently. I've gone around all my life saying all blondes are dumb, just because I had a terrible experience once with a blonde. And from that I now have a generality. You can't trust blondes. Well, we know that's really bullshit. I hate to use that word so much, so I won't. But there are blondes of all types and all distinctions. Some of them by peroxide, some naturally, but some are great people, some aren't so great. But that's true of all people. The idea that I have what is called a service facsimile, in which I say, all blondes are, but I'm okay. I make myself right and others wrong. So, with a little help from Dianetics and Scientology, you can start to think differently about your life and all the things around you, and remember that words are not the thing itself. A word is just, a piece of paper or tiger. Tiger doesn't make a tiger. Tiger? No, nothing. Just a word. If nobody hears it, there's nothing. So, there are tigers that will suddenly turn on you and tear your face off. There are other tigers that like to be hugged and they're fun. You can pet them.